In the future, Earth entered the interstellar age. Two generals fought a war for power, and the bearded General Haki was defeated and fled. Most of his subordinates were killed or exiled, while a few were subsequently sent to military prisons to work as forced laborers. The prisoners had their mouths sealed with torture devices, unable to communicate, and had iron chains tied to one leg. The protagonist, Akai, was one of them. The defeated Haki had been devising a way to turn the tide. One day, acting on his careful plans, he disguised himself as a prisoner and entered the prison, then suddenly attacked the guards. A bold prisoner also took the opportunity to revolt. The prison's early warning system directly activated the crusher for his designated footplate. The bold prisoner was dragged straight into the crusher and met his end, but the snipers outside were Haki's men. With his help, the prisoners quickly disabled all warnings, and a guard, before dying, activated everyone's footplates. Akai tried using scissors and a gun to break the chains, but the iron links were too thick and remained unscathed. Seeing his imminent death, he decisively severed his own calf. He hopped on one leg, leapt closed footplate. They gathered the remaining people and waited for Akai to wake up from his coma, having already arrived at a smuggling ship on the sea. His severed lower leg was replaced with a mechanical one by Haki. Haki helped him eliminate the frostbite. It turns out that Akai's father was Haki's trusted subordinate. After the defeat, he was imprisoned by the victorious General Lang, who planned to execute him on this year's Independence Day. Haki promised that as long as Akai helped him carry out a mission, he would help rescue his father. The mission was to steal data from a spacecraft codenamed Jiantu, because General Lang was conducting an important experiment there. The success or failure would determine the course of the war. Akai's previous performance made Haki admire and trust his abilities. Without much thought, Akai agreed under General Haki's arrangement. He successfully infiltrated the Jiantu spacecraft and exited the cryo chamber midway. He quietly slipped into the engine room, preparing to hack into the system and copy the data. Unexpectedly, the spacecraft was above a mysterious planet. Its intrusion caused the system to lose control. The escape pods were released one after another, rapidly heading towards the sheeny planet before Akai could react. He was on a shuttlecraft. Finally crashed onto the desolate surface. Ake only stayed outside briefly before coughing and quickly returned to the shuttle. The artificial intelligence Rife warned that the outside air is toxic. Prolonged inhalation poses a fatal risk, and the cabin oxygen is down to 12%. However, he does not have login permission and cannot save himself. Ake decided to wear a breathing mask and go out to search for the crashed escape pod so that someone with authority inside can log into the system. After some searching, he discovered Captain Ollie's escape pod, but the captain was already lying on the ground, his fate unknown. So he decisively chose another escape pod and successfully rescued the female lead, Taryn. After putting a mask on her, he held her and rushed back to the shuttle. Meanwhile, Ollie was not actually dead. He was dragged away by a mysterious force. Taryn, a biologist responsible for scientific research, easily passed the verification and logged into the system. Ake couldn't contact Hachi to send back the copied data, and instead discovered from Rife's database that Hachi was actually a big liar. Under the guise of rebellion, he did many bad things. The perceptive Taryn realized this. They realized that Akai was not their ally, but they did not dislike the man who had saved their lives. Someone surveyed and discovered that the planet's oxidation rate was too fast. The spaceship wreckage looked very dilapidated after a short time. Through the telescope, the Arrow spaceship was smoking on a distant hillock. Strangely, a yellow stone that didn't blend with the surroundings suddenly appeared. Akai clearly remembered there wasn't one just moments before, but time was urgent and the two didn't check. But despite hurrying, they still missed it. Just as they arrived at a cave, the Arrow had already launched its escape pod. Worse, Akai was inexplicably dragged into the cave. They only had time to hand over the data storage to Tyron. Tyron turned around and saw that the escape pod had already launched, so they could only helplessly return to the shuttle. The oxygen was nearly exhausted, but suddenly the detector picked up signs of life, so they immediately went out to search and ended up seeing yellow rocks just like during the day. It was only then they realized it wasn't rocks at all, but a huge cocoon, and beside it was Akai emerging from the cocoon. Moreover, not only had his legs regrown, but he was also immune to suffocating air. After waking up, Akai felt as if he had had a nightmare, yet his memories remained intact. Thailand's authority couldn't allow the shuttle to take off, and the two were trapped here to figure out what was happening with Akai's body. Thailand and he arrived beside the yellow cabin they saw during the day. Akai chopped it to pieces with an axe, revealing the already deceased Captain Ollie inside. They quickly dragged him back beside the shuttle. Chow Miao activated the takeoff permissions using the retina. Akai learned from Reeve that there were 76 days left until Independence Day. He planned to go back himself to save his father, but after Ollie awoke, he was extremely agitated. He seemed to be undergoing some kind of torment. I must destroy the core, then pick up a gun from the ground to kill him. During the chaos, Thailand's helmet was shattered, and Akai rushed forward and killed Ollie with his bare hands. But he was also shot and died, leading to all the protagonists being dead and the movie ending. That was impossible, so soon Akai resurrected again, wearing the pants he picked up from the ground. He discovered that the corpse before him had completely turned into a skeleton. The AI, Reef, informed Akai that he had been away for 34 days. During that time, the teleport ship's engine was idling and the fuel ran out. The indifferent Akai decided to first uncover the secret of his revival. He arrived at the cave where he was dragged in the first place and discovered trace footprints. Additionally, his body was having abnormal reactions that frightened him, prompting him to leave quickly. He thought it best to find usable energy to leave this ghostly place and save his father. But that night, Akai suddenly experienced a racing heart and uncontrollable melancholy. To avoid damaging the spaceship, he hurried outside, and suddenly, 2 limbs extended from his back. It wasn't until he returned to his human form that he realized a monster was living inside his body. Fear and pain could trigger his transformation into a deity. At that moment, he grabbed an axe to try to eliminate the monster, otherwise he wouldn't be able to save his father before Independence Day. Reef calmly said, "Brother, your transformation and awakening took 44 days this time. Independence Day has already been over for 2 days. Upon hearing this, Akai realized that his father was already too late. 3 years flew by in the blink of an eye. During this time, Akai's greatest joy was watching fireflies. But this time, upon returning, he suddenly found footprints at the entrance of the teleport ship. Upon closer inspection, Tyrant's ID card had been taken. Rev analyzed that Ollie, like Akai, could continuously resurrect. Moreover, it's likely undergoing an irreversible transformation toward becoming a monster. So, following Rev's advice, Akai used himself as bait. He lured Ollie, now a monster, and suddenly shot, successfully killing the opponent. Rev confirmed Ollie was indeed the monster through sample analysis. While chatting, Akai mentioned the term biologist. Rev quickly guided Akai to review the information, and only then did they realize that Tyron was still alive because his location had been constantly shifting over the past 3 years. Akai was furious. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Rev explained he couldn't initiate the topic himself. He could only branch out to related areas when keywords were mentioned. Simply put, it's because you didn't ask me. "Ah," Kai laughed and cried simultaneously. What a little cutie. The next day, he installed a power system for Rev so that he could continue to... We went out together to search for Thalon, only to discover that Thalon's heartbeat disappeared in that mysterious cave. Akai mustered the courage to explore the place again. Halfway, the flashlight ran out of battery. He turned on the brightest video in his library, Animal World, to illuminate it. As a result, the sound attracted a monster, which quickly knocked Reef to the ground. Akai fought with the monster and used an axe to send the opponent to the afterlife. Strangely, when the opponent died, the cave echoed with wails. Subsequently, Akai discovered an unbelievable scene in the cave. It turned out that both his and Ollie's originals were bound to the wall. Thanks to Yuanyuan's continuous energy maintenance, those who are immortal and constantly resurrecting are actually clones. It was then that he realized what Ollie had been desperately trying to destroy before, the originals. Because his sanity had been entirely consumed by the monster, Akai twisted Ollie's neck to help him end the cycle of reincarnation. However, when it came to dealing with his own original body, he just couldn't bring himself to do it. He only picked up the former mechanical leg and, during the return journey, discovered a launch trace in line with Reef's policy. Kylan successfully repaired the escape pod and flew away. At the same time, he discovered a pulse grenade in the mechanical corner. It seems that Hachi, that old guy, never trusted Akai from the beginning. At this moment, a group of escape pods began to crash continuously from the sky. These were the escape pods launched from here 3 years ago. Why are they crashing again now? At this moment, Reef reminded, "I have an important clue, ask me quickly." Thus, the truth finally surfaced. It turned out that General Lang, who won the war, invented a time dilation technology. This planet was chosen by him as the experimental site. In this way, the criminals were sent to mine on another planet with time dilation set, allowing an hour to yield 10 years worth of mining. Those escape pods launched 3 years ago were actually shot down by General Hachi shortly after reaching space. However, due to time dilation here, they only landed now. At this moment, Hachi led his subordinates onto the scene. As expected, only 20 minutes had passed since Akai went on the mission. His ambition was to seize this technology to turn the tide and become a tyrant. After Akai realized Hachi was untrustworthy, he refused to hand over the experimental documents. Hachi directly hung him up and even used the captured Theron to threaten Akai. Helpless, Akai had no choice but to tell the truth. The data hard drive is in the external reconnaissance device. However, Hachi disregarded the rules of war and first removed Theron's breathing mask. After locating the reconnaissance device, he decisively pressed the pulse to attack as well. He didn't even care about his own subordinate's life, but the pulse grenade was actually on the reconnaissance device. Harlan blew himself up, and his subordinate planned to take advantage. Akai could no longer bear the anger and began to transform. Zerg limbs started growing from his back, and his body began to mutate. Soon, he completely transformed into a giant monster, killing the guarding soldiers in seconds. Just as he lost his sanity and was about to kill Theron, Reef quickly called to him. Akai rammed into Reef, scattering him, but under Theron's soothing, his sanity ultimately overcame the torture. Eventually, he reverted to his original appearance. At that moment, Hachi's voice came from behind. Each heavy bomb didn't kill him, but instead made him increasingly furious towards Akai. But he was purely seeking death. In an instant, the mutated Akai pierced his heart with his monstrous limbs. Now, Akai can freely control his body's mutations. After the electric intoxication, he and Tyron held Riff and boarded Hachi's spaceship, leaving this planet. Next, he is going to save his father. Depression Escape, released in 2016, is a low-budget science fiction film, besides the main characters being relatively attractive and the artificial intelligence being somewhat clumsy. In other aspects, it's somewhat chaotic, fitting the kind of low-rated film that's only suitable for watching with commentary. Alright, that's it for today's movie. See you next time.